Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing. I'm your host, Edward Browne. My two co-hosts, Mark Hoff and Nam Phan, are off today, but we have a full house with three guests. It's going to be fun. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for a 5-pack tanning certificate given away during the show. And that certificate's not sponsored by the radio station, but by Tan Bella Tanning Salon, with 2 locations in San Francisco and 1 in Marin. Today's trivia theme is just general trivia. All right, so our special guests today, Chris Browne, who I've known for a long time, Julie Kane, and Dr. Richard Rikoski from Democracy Investments. Welcome to all three of you. How are you today?
Thanks, Redford. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Okay, so first question I got to ask you, what is Democracy Investments?
I'll start and then have the rest of the team jump in here. So Democracy Investments is an asset management company focused on shifting capital towards democracies and away from authoritarians. At the end of the day, we're trying to incentivize democracy by having a fund that neutrally reweights towards more democratic countries so investors can align their portfolios with democratic values.
So that's kind of cool because it reminds me, Calvert funds was one of the, I think it was the first one, if I'm not mistaken, to be doing socially conscious type investing, where let's say they would avoid tobacco product, those kind of companies. But this is the first one that I've heard that's actually focusing in on the countries, right? It's going to be companies within the countries, because you're not investing in the countries, obviously, you're investing in companies within the countries, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. We start with your typical all-world ex-US index, but neutrally reweighted using the Economist Democracy Index. So at the end of the day, you're in more companies in democratic countries and in less companies in authoritarian states. The indices have been growing like you wouldn't believe, and most investors are not aware that their international portfolio could be as much as 10% in authoritarian states.
Yeah, and do you find, I was going to ask you a quick question, then Chris, I want you to chime in. Do you find that most of your clients or your investors are more interested in the, let's call it the social aspect, as compared to, and we haven't even talked about the rates of return you guys are earning yet, but do most of your investors just like the idea of this type of fund? That's why they invest?
Exactly. They care about democracy, free and fair elections, civil liberties, as opposed to the authoritarian states that are stealing our tech, hacking messing our elections, hacking with cyber attacks, human rights abuses all over the place. Why would you want a portfolio that helps those countries grow? Yeah,
go ahead, Chris. What were you saying?
Well, I was just going to go into more in terms of of how we go about constructing the index and you doing those shifts. Basically, we take a market cap weighted all world ex-US, so we don't leave the United States. We take the United States out of the equation. Okay. We assign a country of risk to every one of those securities, and then we multiply through the democracy score from the Economist Democracy Index. Which is an objective, transparent third-party standard. We multiply those things through and normalize it, and that reweighting basically takes down authoritarian states like China, Russia, and Saudi Arabia by 70s.
But if you asked half the population, I think they'd say that now America is becoming an authoritative state, but that's a.
But that's why that's why we leave it. That's why we leave it off the table. Okay. We're not trying to make a statement internally about things, but we hope that regardless of your affiliation, that you can agree that it might be better just from a value standpoint on that. Rick can certainly speak more to what kind of impact that this kind of a strategy can have, and we also think that it makes sense on a go forward basis, just because our strategy happens to tilt a little bit more towards developed market countries over emerging market countries, and we think that over the next market cycle that will play out given the shifts in global supply chains, and we also think that regardless of what your opinion is around it, that China is going through a major shift in its economy, And that will take, whether they're successful or not, that process, even if they are successful, will take 3 to 5 years, or at least another market cycle to go do it. So
yeah, there's a lot of talk about China having huge issues because of like 50 million condos that have been built and nobody to live in them.
There are a lot of transitional issues that are going on in China in China right now, and we just think that from both a moral and an investment standard, that this product can make some sense for people.
Okay. When we come back from break, I want to hear from Dr. Rikoski. He's been just sort of listening the whole time. We haven't, believe it or not, audience, he's on the air right now. he's just contemplating. He's just kind of taking all this information in, and we're going to hear from him in just a minute. So we want to make a quick mention here for the Mount View Hotel and Spa in beautiful Calistoga. So live life at the Mount View Hotel in Calistoga. Every afternoon, they have vino and vinyl wine tasting. And on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays, join them for dinner and a movie on site. Make yourself at home at the Mount View Hotel in Calistoga. Check them out at mountviewhotel.com. All right, and we're going to cut to our first trivia question here. And again, panel, I can call you the panel. Don't answer yet. We'll wait till we come back. You can answer on the air. All right, our first trivia question is, what is the first of the 4 different strokes swum in swimming's individual medley? All right, call 888-912-1190. The first caller with the correct answer is going to win that tanning certificate, which is worth over $100. All right, one more time, I'm going to ask the question. What is the first of the 4 different strokes swum in swimming's individual medley? All right, stay with us. The Best of Investing will be right back.
I'm drinking coffee.
Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Again, I'm Edward Browne, your host. My 2 co-hosts, Mark Humph and Nam Phan of Pacific Private Money, are not here today, but we have 3 special guests. We'll introduce them in just a second. Again, all right, panel, here's our first trivia question. What is the first of the 4 different strokes swum in a swimming's individual medley? Anybody?
Who wants it? Class, anyone? It's the backstroke, is it not?
It is not the backstroke.
It is not the backstroke.
It's not the backstroke. It's the other, I was going to say it's the other B one. It's the butterfly. Butterfly is the first one. Yeah, I didn't know that either. Nobody's fact checking me on this, so I can say anything I want. No. I just look up these trivia questions, all right? Okay. Hey, also here, I want to make a mention for
it's back breast fly free.
Yeah, freeze strokes is the last one I know.
It's back breast because it's back because you start in the pool. You can't dive in the pool and then flip over and do a backstroke.
I'm going to look that up again. You may be correct. You may be correct. You know what? We'll give credit to either the backstroke.
It's back. I mean, I did a little swimming growing up. I just,
Yeah, you know what? I don't know why. You know what? Somebody fooled me.
Not to call the host wrong. I'm just saying.
No. I think you're right, because that's right. Because otherwise, can you get in the pool to do backstroke? All right. Hey, let me make a quick mention here also for Mountain Mike's Pizza in San Rafael. Pizza the way it ought to be. Every time I mention it, I get hungry for pizza. So check them out. Mountain Mike's Pizza in San Rafael. All right. So on our panel today, we have Chris Browne, who was I believe correct in saying that it's the backstroke. And then Julie Kane and Dr. Richard Rikoski from Democracy Investments. So Rick, we didn't get a chance to hear from you in the last segment. Go ahead, take it away.
All right. So our fundamental thesis is that for the last couple of decades, post the breakup of the Soviet Union, we've been pouring money into authoritarian countries. And we haven't thought through the macroeconomic consequences of that. If you think about a smart CEO, if your company has a high PE ratio, you either sell shares and buy equipment, or you sell shares and you buy other companies to boost your profits. If you have a low PE ratio, you buy back stock. And that's pretty much the standard Wall Street playbook. Okay. But if you're a country and you have a low PE ratio and your companies are buying back shares, your shareholders are making money, but your country isn't growing.
Yeah.
If you have a high PE ratio, your country is going to grow like gangbusters.
Okay.
So when we've gone post 1990 and poured money into the authoritarian countries and given them sky high PE ratios, we've essentially subsidized the growth of authoritarianism. And and we've created macroeconomic conditions that are going to cause that. So what we're trying to do is to redirect the money from the authoritarians to the democracies to create the macroeconomic conditions necessary for democracy to prevail.
Very cool. Very cool. And I'm sorry, I was listening. I wanted to take a quick break because this was just bugging me. I had to look up the answer to that trivia question. I'm sorry, this has nothing to do with democracy investments, but it's kind of, actually, the correct answer really is butterfly. And the reason is because it's the individual medley, not the
relay.
The relay. Yeah, so it really is the butterfly. Okay, I'm sorry.
I've seen it. They flip underwater on the turns. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're already in the water when you're doing the butterfly there.
Yeah,
okay.
It's a rotation.
So, how did you guys get into this specific sector? And I got to think that a big part of it was to be, the consciousness of invest. Sort of like when people invest specifically in environmentally conscious ones. This one is democracy. Companies in democracy type countries. And also, how do you guys decide which ones are like pro-democracy? Because there may be ones that are a little bit on the tilt, right?
It's a sliding scale. So we use the Democracy Index from The Economist. They have a fairly comprehensive survey they've been doing annually for, I think, 16 years now, where they go through factor by factor, 60 questions, and come up with a composite score for the quality of a democracy. And so we just use that score. And so it's not, black and white. There's plenty of gray, to the point that even North Korea doesn't get a 0. North Korea gets a non-zero score because they have a decent literacy rate and they have some women in government, unlike Afghanistan.
Oh, gotcha. Would Afghanistan be the lowest?
No, North Korea is the lowest still.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, they make the Taliban look pretty good.
Now, have any of you traveled to any of these countries to, interview people, or is it just outside research?
We've kept it at arm's length, actually, because if we're involved in that process, there's the potential for us to be corrupted, for people to lobby and say, hey, change the score of our country. By outsourcing the scoring itself, we really make the entire process completely passive. And by investing in every major company in a country, we can make it very clear to any participant in that nation that they're all bought in to seeing that country become more democratic.
It almost reminds me of like a food critic. When it goes into a restaurant, you don't tell anybody you're a food critic because they'll change things for you. You want to go in very anonymously. So that's actually a very, very good point. I'd be a little bit nervous going to certain countries that are not pro-democracy. In other words, we're going to kidnap you unless you change things. You don't want that. We have.
So Edward, we've all spent time in other parts of the world, previous to this mission that we're on right now. So we've seen firsthand.
Yeah.
I served in the Philippines as a naval aviator. Chris spent some time in Venezuela. Rick spent some time in Singapore. So we've seen what it's worth, and we're worried that people are taking it for granted, and democracy is in decline globally.
What are your favorite countries to invest in for the pro-democracy? I would think like Japan would be one.
Yeah, Japan.
Depends there's actually some nuance to that. There's some countries that I personally really like that are not even in our index because they're too small. But there's some emerging democracies that are really interesting in the sense that they have exceptionally low per capita GDPs and have very solid democracy scores. And among those countries, the number one country I would prioritize, even though they're microscopic, is East Timor. Right? Remember the country that had the genocide about 15 years ago, 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're an exceptional little democracy stuck between Australia and Indonesia.
Wow. And I guess what is it? Uganda would be probably pretty good too, wouldn't they?
I think it's Botswana, actually.
Botswana. Okay, and there's Ghana and there's Uganda. I always get those two confused, even though.
But East Timor and Cape Verde, which are both former Portuguese colonies, are really interesting little countries.
Very cool. Okay, and when we come back from break, I'm going to ask about the rate of return, because that's what, from an investing standpoint, that's, it's one thing to be conscious. It's another thing just to be prudent with your money. Okay, second trivia question. What is the largest, and you're not allowed to look at your computer, by the way. What is the largest key on a standard computer keyboard? Call 888-912-1190. First caller with correct answers is going to win that tanning certificate. You guys are doing very good. You're looking at me and not at your computer. All right, stay with us. The Best of Investing will be right back. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Browne, your host, along with my special guests. We'll reintroduce you in just a second. People, what is the largest key on a standard keyboard? Now you can look at your computer. Space bar. That's right. Very good. I want to make also a quick mention here for the Smuin Ballet. Smuin, very interesting. SMUIN ballet.org. Get into the Christmas spirit with your favorite holiday tunes set to new exciting choreography. Celebrate the holidays with the Christmas Ballet, an annual show by the Smuin contemporary ballet that tours the San Francisco Bay Area. Check them out, smuinballet.org. All right. Okay, so before we get into the rate of return, Julie wanted to talk about the countries that are what on the top of your list?
Yeah, so the countries that score well are Norway, Sweden, New Zealand, Canada, Denmark, Australia, Taiwan, the UK, and Japan, as we discussed. They all are scored as full democracies in the Economist Democracy Index.
Okay, fair enough. So, first of all, how long has the fund been in existence?
Since March 31st of this year.
And your AUM?
We're around 4 million.
4 million. Okay. Since March is a little tough to put any kind of performance. Because it's only been 7-8 months, but what has been the performance of your fund, and compare that to, let's say, the S&P 500?
Well, I wouldn't compare us to the S&P 500.
Well, that's true. That's not.
What we're doing is we're comparing ourselves to a market cap weighted, all country world, ex-US index.
Fair enough.
Okay, so we did a 15-year back test before launch, and we came out dead even with the market cap weighted portfolio.
Okay.
Since launch, the forces that we sort of talked about came into play, and we have outperformed the market cap weighted index along the range of 150 to 200 basis points.
Excellent.
So from the end of the first quarter until now, until roughly today, we're up around 6%. Okay. And that's 150 to 200 basis points. I mean, ahead of your market cap weighted competition.
Okay. So as an investor, not only can I feel good about what I'm investing in, but I'm actually making a decent rate of return. As you'd always say, past results are not indicative of future returns. Yeah. But the idea being that you were able to align your values, yeah, and at least not give up anything. And we've been able to generate what we would call smart beta, because we're not doing anything active or intentional in this. We simply follow where the numbers go. We've been able to generate some smart beta for our investors. I like the way you put that too. You're not giving up anything and aligning with your values. And so if the audience is listening and they had an interest in investing, where can they invest in Democracy Investments?
Our website is www.democracyinvestments.com. And please read the disclosure on the fund tab, and you'll see a link to all the major brokerage houses where you can trade our Democracy International Fund, ticker symbol DMCY. Okay, yeah, because you don't have to be an accredited investor. I mean, this is just a normal. It's basically a mutual fund, isn't it? It's traded on the fund. It's an ETF, an exchange. It's an ETF. Fund. Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay. So, and usually ETFs, the management fees are quite low, aren't they? Yes, we're at 50 basis points, all in expense ratio for the
for our investors, for the
Good.
fund.
That's very good. Yeah, because if you look over so much time, that could have a big impact on the net rate of return. So it's really good that you guys are keeping it down. How do you guys make a living though? Because I can't imagine 4 million at 50 basis points, and there's 3 of you.
Yeah, well, you asked us earlier why we're doing this. We're passionate about democracy, and as Rick explained, like we're trying to undo what we've been watching, these capital flows. So we're not here we're here on a mission to promote democracy and incentivize democracy and give investors an option to vote with their portfolios.
Excellent. And so do you have other jobs that you do? Or yeah, because I can't,
No, this is for me. This is it.
This is it. Okay.
At least for me, this is a full-time effort, and we've just launched the fund, and we're getting it off the ground. We've had unbelievable responses from folks that we've from both institutions and family offices that we've talked with, and from investing platforms. So we just have to get the assets. We just have to get just assets off the ground, and then we're flying.
I could definitely see you doing well they call it impact investing. We at Pacific Private Money, we were making pitches to, as they say, billionaires and centimillionaires in Florida, and they loved us. We just didn't produce a high enough rate of return because we were just too conservative. But the guy who invited us said, "Hey, make sure you talk about how your fund impacts the community, because a lot of these guys are looking for some kind of social causes to invest in." And we had our aspect of impact investing, but I would think that you guys would do pretty well in pitching to the uber wealthy for that reason.
Yeah, we've had a lot of great response. We feel very fortunate and looking forward to getting this off the ground. So appreciate you having us on the show.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's just the unrestricted access. Do whatever you want with the just don't swear. I one time I had an attorney on, and of all things, an attorney, and he swore. He dropped an F-bomb, and I had to quickly tell the station, okay, when you get to the third segment in 2 minutes and 14 seconds, I go, well, you have to bleep it out, because I didn't know how to bleep it out back then. So to be very, very careful with these things. Okay, hey, we're going to go to our third trivia question here. What beer's name means lion's brew in German? I figured Chris would know this one. Not because he's a big beer drinker, but I figured he'd know this one. Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer is going to win that tanning certificate. Again, what beer's name means lion's brew in German? Stay with us. The Best of Investing. I'll be right back. Okay. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. One more time. I'm Edward Browne, your host. People, what beer's name means lion's brew in German? Chris?
Tonight, let it be Lowenbrow.
Lowenbrow tonight. Just tonight, let it be Lowenbrow.
Just tonight. Here's to good friends. Tonight's kind of special.
Yeah. Now, I want to ask one quick question, and I want Rick to kind of take off with some data. So what are your hopes for long-term impacts as the fund grows?
We hope that as the fund grows, every country will be incentivized to improve their democracy score, and the world will become more democratic.
Oh. Okay.
Any country can look up which of the 60 factors they need to improve to get more capital, and as we grow, there'll be more incentives to improve your democracy score.
Yeah, I would think that as you grow, I could see a lot of these countries kind of going, hey, these guys are kind of growing. We want to be on their scale. What do we need to do to change things? Yeah. So
to kind of frame Julie's answer a little bit, if we got to be as big as, say, a Vanguard fund, right, we would be moving approximately 1 month's net capital inflow out of certain authoritarian states towards democracies. Yeah. And if the entire market adopted our methodology, which they're not, you'd be moving on the order of many, many years worth of net capital inflow. So if the markets adopt our methodology, we would bring authoritarianism to its knees.
That'd be awesome. Are there any other funds that are like yours that you know of?
No, we're the first.
That's all. Okay, that's great to be that kind of trailblazing. You know, again, I know that there are socially conscious type funds, you know, environmental type funds. But yeah, this is the first one I've heard of specifically looking at pro-democracy. You know, I almost want to just start going, USA, USA, you know.
Well, there's a couple of things in there. One is actually, I don't think American democracy is doing quite as badly as people think. Because, you know, we've got all these troll farms telling us that we're terrible, and our politicians aren't making us look good either. But the truth is that there is no other country on earth that is as big as we are, with as many ethnic groups as we have, that has a functioning democracy. Everyone points to like Norway and Sweden, which have 5 and 10 million people. In our weight class, you basically got China, India, Indonesia, and Pakistan. And as peers, we're doing really well.
Yeah. I guess this kind of goes back to that, you know, absolute power corrupts absolutely, you know, because you kind of look and you say, you know, why couldn't these countries, you know, can't they see how much better and happier people are if you have democracy? You know, I mean, we're more of kind of a republic, so to speak, but, you know, that's what drives me just bananas when I hear,
You're right.
Well, especially from the young people when they are feeling like, oh, we should be socialists. I say, well, why don't you look at, or communists? And I say, why don't you look at the countries that these people flee from? I mean, they think we're crazy. You know, people coming, let's say, from Cuba, and they go, I don't get it. They said, I flew away from Cuba to come here, so that I could get away from that to get into democracy. You know, what are these people talking about? So I don't know. That's just one of my pet peeves that just sort of drives me crazy when I hear people speak from ignorance. You know.
Well, that's what the troll farms are for, right? The goal of the troll farms is to convince us that our system is bad, and to convince when they go and try to create divisions in America and try to undermine the quality of life and inflame divisions between different groups in our society, they're doing that in part because they have to show their people that our system actually isn't good. And so they have to try to undermine our system from inside our country.
And then say, see, look, it didn't work. You know,
exactly.
Yeah.
And if you look through the history of these things, every time there's been a major social movement, adversaries have appeared on both sides of those movements trying to inflame tensions.
Yeah. No, it's very thought provoking. You know, it's true, and it seems like it's always met with lots of violence too.
Yes.
You know, it's very difficult to have a, you know, call it a revolution or whatever you want to have. I mean, it's very rare when it happens without a lot of bloodshed.
But the beauty of democracy is you don't need to have a revolution, because we have one essentially every 4 years. We schedule them. We call them elections.
That's a good point. Rick, you're as American as it can be. I love it. So going forward, how do you get the name? How do you get the information out to people? You know, be it advertising or just, you know, going on like shows like this and et cetera.
Part of it is just launching, period. And there's no substitute in the industry for simply having a fund out there and getting a track record. You know, a lot of the institutional investors won't come in until you have several years. So we've done that for starters, right? And you know, we're pretty happy with how we've performed to date. And it's not just about returns. It's about the actual volatility and how essentially our portfolio moves more or less in lockstep with the index we're trying to mimic. We're trying to give people exactly what they expect in an international index, while incentivizing the transformation to democracy and helping the democratic countries grow faster than the authoritarians. We're essentially trying to give people everything that they want while not hurting America.
You know, I like the idea too of the less volatility, because when I think of anything international, I automatically think very volatile.
We're actually not going for less volatility. We're going for exactly the same volatility. So our noise perfectly mimics the other one.
Okay, so then maybe what do you call it? The beta? Is that the idea? Is to keep it not such a wide variance from what, like, specifically the index that you're looking at? So is that what they call the beta?
Chris,
or am I wrong?
You want to dive into this?
Sorry, the question again?
Well, specifically beta. Doesn't the beta kind of measure how closely correlated it is to, like, specifically what?
To an index, yeah. So it's so the beta of a stock, say the beta of Coca-Cola stock to the S&P 500 is generally how much for the volatility, or how much the S&P 500 moves. The beta measures a multiple, either just slightly above or slightly below 1, that will measure how much the expected move of a stock should be given that move.
Gotcha. Okay. So again, the beta on Democracy Investments Fund is
almost 1.
That's great. Okay. So at least, like you said, that goes back to you know what to expect. So it's not going to be like, the international funds,
we're highly correlated, yeah. and we have the beta is something like 1.02, 1.01, 1.02.
That's, you can't get too much better than that. Not really. I mean, if you're to say, hey, listen, it's like basically, okay, audience out there, I'm going to make it really simple for you. If the stock market goes up and you're in a fund that's supposed to mimic the stock market, then your fund should go up about the same percentage. There it is. Very, very simple for the audience out there, just trying to understand what is all this beta stuff. And, I remember modern portfolio theory and kind of getting all that kind of fun stuff together. And it's been many years. So, that's why I had to ask you, because I kind of forgot a lot of that stuff.
Well, it's how much a stock moves relative to the general market, or
the specific index.
Folks use the S&P 500, or in our case, we would use the ACWX US.
Yeah, and I would think also that you'd have to get the fund up not only just number of years, but dollars in it in order to attract the big boys. Because I know, right, like our fund, even when we were at 60 million, it was sort of a, you guys are too small. All right, stay with us. The Best of Investing will be back with some closing comments. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Browne, your host. No trivia question, but I want to give a quick call to action, and then I want Rick to kind of wrap things up a bit here. So on the New York Stock Exchange, the symbol for Democracy Investments is DMCY, and you can also go to the website www.democracyinvestments.com to check them out. Rick, explain about what's going on with money invested in the dollars invested in democracy compared to how things are just kind of declining in value.
Well, in the last 15 years, the average dollar invested globally has gone from being invested in a democracy to invested in a flawed democracy. In Western Europe and North America, things have been fairly stable. In Eastern Asia and Eastern Europe, the average dollar has become more and more invested in competitive authoritarian states that pretend to have democracies but don't. And the Middle East has been in complete free fall. The Middle East, 15 years ago, the money was usually in a flawed democracy. Now it's going to a flat out authoritarian country. And so we need to think about how we're investing. And if we really want democracy to survive in the long run, we need to quit pumping the authoritarian states up by just throwing money at them. And so that's why we want to encourage people to think about what they're doing and redirect their capital towards the democracy. So in the long run, the democracies grow more and democracy prevails.
It's almost like when there's a call to action to boycott certain companies because if it turns out that these sneakers are being made by, slave labor children in foreign lands, it's almost the same sort of thing where investing in certain companies, the average investor might really have no idea that X company in X country where their money is being invested is this authoritarian government.
True, or they may simply think that in order to get decent returns, they've got to invest in authoritarian states, period. And honestly, I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I don't think so. But honestly, I don't know how many investors are going to say, yeah, I only invest in authoritarian governments because that's where the money is. But again, you're not really, as long as you're not sacrificing, you're in, because we're all supposed to be wise stewards of our money in addition to having a conscience and investing, with morality.
Well, in economics, you talk about externalities.
Yeah.
And when we invest thinking about our portfolio, but we don't think about the externalities. And our argument is we believe you can construct a portfolio where the two portfolios are the same, the one that's baseline, the one that's pro-democracy. But the pro-democracy one has massive positive externalities, and the baseline actually has significant negative externalities because it's abetting the rise of authoritarianism.
Well said. Very well said. Again, why don't you introduce yourselves real quickly before we have to cut out? Chris Browne.
Sure, I'm Chris Browne. I'm a chartered financial, or I've earned the chartered financial analyst designation, formerly with Franklin Templeton and Shelton Capital Management.
All right, and Julie?
Julie Kane, I'm the CEO of Democracy Investments, formerly with Wells Fargo, and I'm a former naval aviator.
Cool. And Rick?
I'm Rick Rikoski, and I'm the chief economist of Democracy Investments.
Very cool. All right. Thank you all for joining me. And we're going to cut out for our thoughts of the day. We always like to add a little levity here. So some of these are like dad jokes, so just get ready for them, all right? So the guy I paid to pave my driveway hasn't shown up in 3 weeks, but I'm not worried, though. I'm sure he'll resurface one day. I'm sorry, that's bad. Okay, and can someone please tell me what the lowest rank in the military is? Every time I ask someone, they say it's private. Oh, there we go. We got somebody who was in the military to you like that one, huh, Julie? Okay. All right. Tune in next week to The Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away more free prizes for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Browne, wishing you the best of investing. So long.